Welcome back to Occult Archives, listeners. You know the deal by now. We dig into the stories behind history's most, well, let's say infamous books, right? The ones that people talk about in hushed tones. The ones that maybe you even feel a little, I don't know, hesitant to read.
Hesitant is one way to put it.
Yeah.
Today we're looking at a doctrine that definitely has a reputation for being both intriguing and a little unnerving, to say the least.
We're talking Theosophy, episode 234. But rather than getting caught up in, the spooky stuff, we thought it would be cool to take a deep dive into what this system of thought actually says, like at its core. We're going to be working mainly with one text, a bit of a dense one, but hey, that's what we do here, right?
We love a challenge.
Yeah.
And it's important to note, as our author does, that really getting Theosophy, like actually getting it, means kind of seeing the world through its lens, at least for a bit.
Right, you got to try on the glasses, so to speak.
Exactly. They actually argue that when you look at it on its own terms, it's quite rigorous. Like it lines up with what we think of as scientific methods.
Oh, that's interesting, because you wouldn't necessarily think of like occult philosophy and hard science as going together.
Right. But that's the claim, at least. It's going to be fun to unpack that. And they even mentioned another book of theirs, Philosophy of Freedom. Seems like they're playing on a pretty big intellectual field, you know?
I do know that feeling, and I think that's why so many people are drawn to these kinds of deep dives in the first place, right? Like, our world is overflowing with information, news, opinions, facts, you name it. But often it feels like we're missing, I don't know, a deeper meaning behind it all.
Totally. And that's where this text comes in. It claims to offer some answers by looking into what it calls supersensible facts, stuff beyond our five senses.
Okay, getting into the good stuff now.
Right. And the author even makes the point that for folks who are, deeply questioning the nature of reality, most of what's out there, like the usual intellectual or spiritual discussions, can actually make things more confusing.
They stir the pot without giving you a spoon to eat with.
Yeah, basically. So today, what we really want to do is boil this down, right? Extract the key ideas about how Theosophy understands these hidden worlds, this occult destiny it talks about for humanity.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll break down that term too. We want to make this stuff accessible, something you can actually think about, and maybe even, have a light bulb moment or two while you're listening.
Love those light bulb moments. So first things first, why does our source material say we even need to know about this supersensible stuff? Like, what's the big deal?
Well, the argument is that the ways we usually try to figure out the world, our everyday science and philosophy, they just don't cut it when it comes to the really big questions, the fundamental ones.
Like, why are we here? What is consciousness? That kind of thing.
Exactly. Our author says that if we only use those tools, we inevitably hit a wall. Those questions just hang there unanswered.
Frustrating.
And it's not just frustrating on a, intellectual level.
Yeah.
It actually impacts how we live, our inner peace, even our ability to deal with the world practically.
Okay, that makes sense. We're meaning-seeking creatures, after all. But I'm sure some people listening were like, hold on, super sensible facts. How do we even know those exist? Sounds pretty out there.
That's totally fair. And the text actually anticipates that skepticism. It says that when people demand proof, like ironclad, undeniable proof, it often reveals that they have a very limited idea of what proof even means in this context.
So it's not about rejecting evidence, but maybe questioning what we consider evidence in the first place.
Right. Because we tend to accept proof only when it fits into our existing beliefs. We're more comfortable with data that confirms what we already think.
It's like looking for your keys only under the streetlight, even if you drop them somewhere else.
Perfect analogy. But our author isn't saying just blindly believe everything either. They're very insistent that what's in the book actually aligns with the core principles of science. We just have to be open to the possibility that science, as we currently understand it, is looking at one level of reality, while there might be other layers, other ways of knowing.
It's like that saying, if your only tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly. You need different tools, different methods to explore different realms.
So how do we get those tools? How do we develop this ability to perceive these higher truths, as they're called? Is it years of study? Some kind of mystical initiation?
Interestingly enough, the text says no to both of those. It actually suggests that too much academic learning, being too steeped in what's considered conventional science, can sometimes be a hindrance.
Seriously? How so?
Well, because science often limits itself to what can be observed through our senses, right?
Right.
It can create this idea that you can't see it, touch it, measure it, it's not real.
So all that education can make you less open to these subtler realities.
In a way, yeah. But the text emphasizes that Anyone can cultivate this higher sense, this ability to perceive the unseen, as long as they approach it with open-minded logic and a genuine desire for truth.
So you don't need a PhD, just an open mind and a thirst for knowledge. I like that.
Me too. Now, another common objection is the idea that human knowledge just has limits. Like there are things we're just not meant to know. Does Theosophy address that?
It does, and it actually pushes back pretty hard against that idea. It sees those limits not as fixed boundaries, but more like potentials waiting to be unlocked within us.
Like a muscle you haven't exercised yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's saying that what we currently see as the limits of knowledge are really just limits of our current stage of development, of the tools we're using.
And that by developing new capacities, these slumbering faculties, as it calls them, we can transcend those perceived limits.
Okay, so we can potentially perceive this larger, more encompassing reality. But what does that reality actually consist of? What is Theosophy's view of what it means to be human?
This is where the idea of the threefold nature of humanity comes in. It says that we exist and interact with reality on three levels: the body, the soul, and the spirit.
Three distinct aspects of ourselves, but all interconnected.
Right. The body, obviously, is our physical form, the one that's anchored to the material world, the one that interacts with the world through the five senses.
The one we can see and touch.
Exactly. Then there's the soul. This is our inner world, the realm of sensations, feelings, emotions, and will. It's how we experience the world subjectively and how we react to it on an emotional level.
So my love for chocolate chip cookies, my fear of spiders, that's all happening in the soul realm.
Exactly. And it's important to note the text emphasizes this, that those inner experiences, those feelings, they're not just brain chemistry. They're attributes of the soul, a different level of reality.
Okay, so we have the physical body, the feeling soul. What about the spirit? Where does that fit in?
The spirit is seen as the part of us that's capable of grasping the true nature of things, the underlying principles, the universal laws that exist independently of our personal feelings or experiences.
So if I'm looking at a beautiful sunset and I feel awe and wonder, that's my soul responding. But if I start thinking about the physics of light, the Earth's rotation, the atmospheric conditions that create that sunset, that's my spirit seeking understanding.
That's a brilliant way to put it, and the text uses an interesting analogy to illustrate this. Imagine going back to the same meadow every year. You'll see different flowers blooming each time, maybe evoking different feelings in you. The specific joy you felt last year from seeing a particular flower exists now only as a memory in your soul. But the underlying species of those flowers, the laws of botany that govern their growth, those remain constant, regardless of your personal experience.
So the spirit is concerned with those eternal laws, the unchanging essence of things.
Exactly. Now let's delve a little deeper into each of these aspects, starting with the body, or what the text calls the corporeal being.
This is the most familiar to us, right? It's made up of the same stuff as everything else in the physical world.
Exactly. It's subject to the same laws of physics, chemistry, biology. We can study it using the same methods we use to study any other physical object.
Makes sense. Now, what about the soul being? How does that differ from our physical existence?
Well, the key difference is that the soul is our inner world, our subjective experience. And the text points out that even something as seemingly objective as a sensory perception, like seeing the color blue, is actually subjective. We can't know for sure if another person experiences blue the exact same way we do.
My blue might be different from your blue.
Exactly. So while we can both see a blue object, we can't perceive each other's sensation of blueness. That sensation belongs to the realm of the soul. And the same goes for our feelings, emotions, desires, our will. That ability to choose and act in the world, those are all attributes of the soul being.
Okay, so the soul is where our unique inner world plays out. What about the spiritual being? What's its main activity?
Thinking. Thinking is seen as the primary function of the spirit. It's through thought that we can go beyond just reacting to the world and start to understand it, to connect different experiences, to find meaning.
So it's not just about taking in information, but actively engaging with it, processing it, making sense of it.
Exactly. And the text says that when we strive to think logically, accurately, we're aligning ourselves with a higher order, a spiritual order. Just as our body is subject to physical laws, our spirit is subject to the laws of thought, the laws of logic.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection between the spirit and this idea of higher knowledge.
It's all about moving beyond the limitations of our senses, of our personal opinions and beliefs, and tapping into those universal truths, those laws that govern everything. And the text even says that the most elevated feelings, like deep compassion, aesthetic appreciation, even moral conviction, Those arise not from random emotions, but from this energetic engagement of our thinking with those higher realities.
That's beautiful. So we have the body grounding us in the physical, the soul experiencing the world subjectively, and the spirit connecting us to the universal. But how do these three actually interact?
Well, they're constantly influencing each other. The physical brain is the instrument through which the spirit thinks, and the soul acts as a kind of bridge between the two. Higher feelings, for example, don't just appear out of nowhere. They're cultivated through the spirit's interaction with the soul, through focused thought directed toward higher ideals.
So it's not about denying the physical or the emotional, but about integrating them with the spiritual.
Exactly. Now let's talk about how we can expand our perception beyond those limitations of our ordinary senses.
Yeah, how do we actually start to see these other realms, this supersensible reality?
The text says that our five senses are really only good at perceiving the mineral world, the world of physical matter. To perceive the life force itself, the energy that animates living things, we need to develop a new faculty. And this is where the idea of the ether body or life body comes in.
Okay, so it's like a subtler body that allows us to perceive a subtler level of reality.
Exactly. And as we develop this capacity, we can start to see the spirit form that underlies all living things, the energy that gives them shape and vitality.
It's like developing a new kind of vision, a vision for life energy itself.
I like that. Now, along with this, the text introduces the concepts of the sentient soul and the soul body.
What are those?
Well, the sentient soul is basically the part of us that responds to the external world. It's the source of our sensations.
Okay, so it's like the interface between the outer world and our inner experience.
Exactly. And the soul body, also called the astral shape, acts as a link between our physical and etheric bodies and the sentient soul. It's interesting the text mentions that this soul aspect of us actually extends a bit beyond the physical body.
Like an energy field.
Sort of. And then we have the intellectual soul and the consciousness soul, even more refined aspects of our inner being.
I'm sensing a pattern here. More layers, more complexity.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, but in a good way. The intellectual soul is what allows us to think abstractly, to form concepts, to rise above purely instinctual responses.
So it's what makes us human, in a way.
You could say that. And then the consciousness soul is even higher. It's described as the bearer of self-existent truth, the part of us that can grasp universal truths, not just personal opinions or beliefs.
So the intellectual soul gives us reasoning power. The consciousness soul gives us access to higher knowledge.
Exactly. And the text emphasizes the interplay between these different aspects of the soul. Our physical body can limit the soul's experience, while the spirit, through its pursuit of truth and goodness, can expand the soul's capacities, leading to the emanation of what's called the human aura.
The aura. Another concept that gets thrown around a lot. So in this view, it's a reflection of the soul's development, of its alignment with the spirit.
Precisely. It's a visual expression of that inner dynamic. Now let's talk about the I, the ego, that moment in childhood when we realize, hey, I'm a separate being.
The text mentions Jean Paul's experience, remembering that moment of suddenly knowing, I am an I.
Such a powerful realization. And the text describes the I as our core being, the center of our individuality, acting through both the body and the soul. It's what makes us unique, what transcends the physical and emotional realms. It's described as an occurrence taking place only in the veiled holies of a man. So deeply personal, so internal.
It's like the captain of our ship steering us through life.
Good analogy. And the text goes on to say that the spirit plays a crucial role in developing this I, leading to the emergence of the spirit self, and even beyond that to the life spirit and the spirit man.
Okay, now we're getting into the really deep stuff.
It is deep, but also incredibly fascinating. The spirit self is like the individualized expression of universal truth, while the life spirit and spirit man are even more fundamental, more universal aspects of our spiritual being. The I connects all these different levels, and the spirit self brings those universal truths into our personal consciousness.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. But it's all about understanding the different layers of our being, how they interact, and how we can develop those higher aspects of ourselves.
Now let's move on to something that I know a lot of people are curious about, reincarnation and karma. How does Theosophy approach those concepts?
Well, it sees the soul as this intermediary between the physical body, which is temporary, and the spirit, which is eternal. The soul preserves our experiences through memory and shapes our future through the consequences of our actions.
So our choices matter, not just in this life, but across multiple lifetimes.
Exactly. And memory itself is seen not as a function of the brain, but it's a fundamental capacity of the soul. It's the faithful preserver of the past, linking our past to our present.
So what about the knowledge we gain, the skills we develop, even our talents? Do those carry over?
The text says that the spirit self is constantly being shaped by our experiences. So all those learnings, as well as our innate predispositions, they're not lost when the physical body dies. They become part of the spirit, carried over into future lives.
So that's why some people seem to have natural gifts, like they were born knowing certain things.
Could be. It's all part of this ongoing journey of evolution, of spiritual development. And when we're born into a new physical body, the spirit brings all that accumulated experience, all those tendencies, which then shape our destiny in that new life. That's karma in a nutshell.
It's not about punishment or reward, but about cause and effect playing out across lifetimes.
Precisely. Our current circumstances are a reflection of choices made in past lives, and our choices now will shape our future lives. Now let's explore these different realms that the soul and spirit inhabit, starting with the soul world.
What's that like?
Well, first, we need to understand that to perceive these realms, we need to develop higher organs of perception, what are often called spiritual senses.
Not our physical senses, but something more internal, more subtle.
Right. And the soul world, also sometimes called the astral plane, is described as being much more fluid, more malleable than the physical world. It's the realm of desires and wishes, of longing.
Sounds like it could be pretty intense.
It can be. The text describes different types of soul formations in this realm, based on the balance between antipathy and sympathy, basically, attraction and repulsion.
So our desires and aversions actually create forms in this world.
They do. And there are different levels, from the most base, sensual desires to more refined emotions. It's a dynamic realm, constantly shifting as these forces interact.
And what happens to the soul in this soul world after death?
Well, it goes through a process of purification, of gradually letting go of those attachments to the physical world. It's not a uniform process, but varies depending on the individual's soul qualities.
So it's kind of like a sorting process.
In a way, yes. The text compares it to the concept of purgatory in some religious traditions. It describes different regions within the soul world, each dealing with a specific type of purification.
So there's a region for those who are overly attached to material possessions, another for those consumed by unfulfilled desires, and so on.
Exactly. And as the soul progresses through these regions, it gradually sheds those attachments, those longings for the physical world.
Until it's finally free.
Until it reaches a state of perfect sympathy, where it merges with the greater soul world, allowing the spirit to move on to its own realm.
Okay, so the soul world is a kind of way station, a place of transition. What about the spirit land?
That's where the spirit resides between incarnations, preparing for its next life. It's a realm where the spirit can experience the spiritual archetypes of earthly things, the pure ideas or blueprints behind everything in the physical world.
So instead of seeing a specific tree, you experience the essence of treeness.
Exactly. And there are different regions in the spirit land, each with a specific focus. The first contains the archetypes of physical things. The second encompasses the entire life of the earth as a single thought being. And the third holds the archetypes of the soul world.
That sounds incredibly vast and profound.
It is. And through these experiences, the spirit is enriched, strengthened, prepared for its next descent into the physical world. The higher regions of the spirit land are especially important because there the spirit can shed the remaining limitations of earthly experience and experience its true self, what's called the bearer of causes or the causal body.
So that's the core of our spiritual identity, the part that persists across lifetimes.
Exactly. And it's in those highest regions that the spirit communes with higher spiritual beings, experiences the cosmic order, and sets the direction for its future incarnations.
Wow, it's a lot to take in, but it's incredibly mind-expanding. So we have these three interconnected worlds, the physical, the soul world, and the spirit land, all part of a larger unified reality.
Exactly. And the physical world, the one we experience with our senses, is really just a manifestation, a condensation of these higher, more spiritual realms.
That's like the tip of the iceberg.
A perfect analogy. And the text mentions these elementary kingdoms, which are invisible force beings that help shape and maintain these different realms.
Like nature spirits.
Sort of. They're part of this vast web of life that extends beyond what we can normally perceive.
Okay, now let's talk about thought forms and the aura. How do those fit into this picture?
Well, in these higher realms, thoughts and feelings are just abstract things. They actually manifest as forms and colors.
So you can literally see someone's thoughts and emotions.
In a way, yes. The text says that thoughts have specific colors and shapes depending on their nature. Base, sensual thoughts might appear as dark red, while intellectual thoughts might be light yellow, and selfless love could be a vibrant rose pink.
So the aura is like a visual representation of someone's inner state.
Exactly. It shows whether their thoughts and actions are driven by selfish desires or higher aspirations. It's like a constant broadcast of their inner being.
Fascinating. So how do we actually develop this ability to perceive these things, to gain this higher knowledge? What's the path?
The text is clear that this knowledge is available to everyone, not just a select few. It all starts with thinking, with actively using our minds to understand these concepts.
So study and contemplation are the first steps.
Yes, but it goes beyond that. We also need to cultivate receptivity, to open ourselves to the world without letting our personal biases and opinions cloud our perception.
To see things as they are, not just how we want them to be.
Exactly. And we need to develop the ability to value things objectively, to recognize their inherent worth beyond whether they please or displease us personally.
To get beyond our ego-centered perspective.
Precisely. And finally, we need to practice what the text calls regulated thinking, which is basically training our minds to think clearly, logically, in alignment with those universal laws of truth.
So it's like mental discipline, like practicing a skill.
Exactly. It's about overcoming those habitual patterns of scattered, chaotic thinking and developing a mind that's sharp, focused, and capable of grasping those higher truths. And the ultimate goal of all this, according to the text, is to develop the will for freedom.
What does that mean in this context?
It means freedom from the limitations of our lower nature. Freedom from those desires and aversions that keep us bound to the material world. It's about acting from our highest self, from a place of understanding and wisdom, motivated by those eternal principles we've been talking about.
It's about aligning our will with the will of the universe, in a way.
You could say that. It's about becoming who we truly are, those spiritual beings capable of knowing and experiencing those higher realities.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like we've only scratched the surface of this vast and complex system of thought.
We have. But hopefully we've given our listeners a taste of what Theosophy is all about, beyond the myths and misconceptions.
We've explored the threefold nature of humanity, the existence of those supersensible worlds, the concepts of reincarnation and karma, and the importance of developing our inner capacities to perceive those higher truths.
It's a lot to ponder, but it's a path of knowledge that's open to anyone who's willing to put in the effort.
And maybe that's why some people are afraid of these ideas. It's not that they're dangerous in themselves, but that they challenge our comfortable assumptions about reality and demand that we expand our minds, our hearts, and our very way of being in the world.
And as you've been listening, what's been stirring in you? What old beliefs might need to be re-examined? What new possibilities are opening up? These are the questions we invite you to explore further on your own as you continue your journey.